But panhandling is perhaps the most public way to collect money. On a street corner with a sign, you're a captive audience in your car. Most panhandlers might look at you, might wait for a hint that you'll donate, then approach your car. That does not seem to be the strategy, though, of members of one group in Fort Wayne who call themselves the Sandbox Veterans.
They have been around for a couple of years, saying they help Iraq and Afghanistan veterans. But lots of people wonder where this money is going, and folks also wonder about their aggressive tactics, their approach to you on the streets. In a 15 Finds Out special report, Adam Widener has been investigating the real story of the Sandbox Veterans. We're calling this Patriots or Panhandlers. Adam?
The Sandbox Veterans ask for your donation from street corners, medians, and near intersections. You might have encountered them. Their style and approach is seen as aggressive, and that's where we start our investigation. Can they do what they do the way they do it? If you hop in a car with Sam Fennessy,
just kind of looking at the traffic, kind of looking around,
and come across the Sandbox Veterans,
he's weaving in and out of traffic.
You'll hear some frustration.
Then I see this gentleman standing here, probably about 6 inches away from my window. He was just kind of like giving me the eye, like, you know, you need to give me money. You know, is this guy legitimate?
His concerns are different than those of your average driver.
I was in the Marine Corps. Recently, I just got out, January 2012. It kind of made me wonder, you know, where is this money going? Are they really making any efforts to help out with our service members?
And he's not alone. Since 15 Finds Out investigated Fort Wayne panhandlers 1 year ago,
Did you follow me?
We've received dozens of emails and calls urging us to investigate the so-called Sandbox Veterans. One of those callers,
they are very aggressive,
was Jody West. She lives in DuPont Lakes apartments and sees the Sandbox Veterans standing near her complex's exit a lot.
They're there 7 days a week. They run out in front of you, behind you. They will run right up to your car and hold their can out. They have a lot of money. I don't think most people would have that much time to spend on an organization to collect money, and just the two same guys in the same location continuously. There's just something doesn't feel right about it.
The Sandbox Veterans have been collecting money around Fort Wayne for years, and the city makes it clear that their methods are illegal.
So if the person trying to solicit is in the street or along the sidewalk, along the park strip, in a median, those are areas that would not be allowed to try to solicit money from motorists who are trying to get from point A to point B. Our police department certainly has every right to look at the safety component. If they feel a situation needs to be looked at, they certainly will. They also would have the opportunity to issue a citation if they feel that's necessary.
And they have. Our cameras found a Fort Wayne officer confronting the Sandbox Veterans when they were panhandling around a median near Coldwater and DuPont. And that wasn't the first run-in with the cops either. Adam Silvani is one of the Sandbox volunteers 15 Finds Out has seen collecting money several times this past year. Silvani received 2 citations in the past 6 months. One for panhandling in August was later dismissed. Another for unlawfully stopping or standing on a sidewalk in December, with a court date next week.
So you cannot solicit donations from occupants inside of a car on a public road.
But if it's over...
Can I see your driver? Yeah.
The Sandbox Veterans posted this YouTube video of what they call police harassment. Here's their defense.
Prosecuting attorney and the city controller said to carry this, because they're state licensed, that's our nonprofit.
Okay.
And to carry this letter, which is basically, she's over the street. Her name's Susie Sims.
Okay.
And she said, you don't need a permit, and you guys are good.
Taking a closer look at that letter, the city official writes, quote, the Sandbox Veterans does not require a permit to collections. Not-for-profit organizations are not required to get a permit, end quote. But that hasn't stopped police from responding to complaints.
Cannot solicit donations from occupants on the road.
Unless you are overturned by the city government, that's what I'm telling you.
Okay, good enough. I'll be back with you in a minute.
I don't understand that.
City leaders have seen this video and say Silvani is misrepresenting what they told him.
An email was communicated to them that indicated that they would not need a permit to solicit funds. but it did not say that they had the right to solicit funds in an area that's prohibited by city code.
Sometimes the Sandbox veterans stand on private property like this median in the Chapel Ridge Shopping Center. It's owned by Mike's Car Wash, but since the end of December, the group stopped collecting donations here. The reason? A manager of Mike's tells me he was hearing so many complaints from customers driving around this area, he was worried the Sandbox veterans were hurting his business. So he called the cops on him. They were kicked off private property and haven't been back since. Still, the incident at Chapel Ridge and confrontations with the cops haven't stopped the group. 15 Finds Out has spotted them on East DuPont Road a lot lately, leaving people like West wishing they would move their aggressive tactics away from her complex.
I really hope that somebody can move them to either another location or assure us that the money is going to the Sandbox veterans.
A man named Roger Locke is the head of the Sandbox veterans. In an email, Locke told me he believes the city has violated his right to freedom of speech and cites corruption. He uses as an example the fire department, which collects money from drivers in the same way during its annual boot drive for muscular dystrophy. But mostly, Mark and Heather, we wanted to hear from Locke's organization and want to know who they've helped. So I approached them last week. You can find out how they responded later this week as 15 Finds Out continues our series of investigations, Patriots or Panhandlers.
Okay, great. Thank you, Adam. Sandbox veterans collect donations from generous drivers all around Fort Wayne. They say the money goes to help Iraq and Afghanistan vets with PTSD.
Members of the group walk up to vehicles at stoplights in what lots of people consider an aggressive way. But as 15 Finds Out exclusively reported earlier this week, city leaders say their tactics aren't just aggressive, they're illegal. So what does the organization have to say about it? News Channel 15's Adam Widener continues our series of investigations, Patriots or Panhandlers.
Through calls, emails, even off-the-record conversations, 15 Finds Out has desperately tried to get the leaders of the Sandbox veterans to sit down on camera to talk about their organization. What we found was, although the group collects your money in perhaps the most public way, they're far less willing to publicly outline exactly where that money is going. It's easy to see the Sandbox veterans collect donations. City leaders say their methods violate city code, and local drivers call it
Very aggressive. They run out in front of you, behind you. They will run right up to your car and hold their can out.
But getting the group's leaders to sit down for an interview, hey guys, wasn't so simple.
No comment. You guys, no.
15 Finds Out has been emailing back and forth with Roger Locke. He's listed as the head of the Sandbox veterans. Locke initially referred us to his organization's website and didn't want to do an interview, saying he and an attorney are preparing a civil action suit against the city of Fort Wayne, seeking $3.2 million for what he calls a violation of his group's freedom of speech. After several other emails, Locke said he would do an interview and make his financial records public after the city gets his lawsuit filing. But a city spokesman tells 15 Finds Out city attorneys have no record of any lawsuit. And there are still so many questions in the community, like this one from Marine veteran Sam Fennessy.
It kind of made me wonder, where is this money going? Are they really making any efforts to help out with our service members?
So we approached the Sandbox veterans with a camera when they were on East DuPont Road. Before we could get there, hey guys, they hopped in a van and drove off. So we followed them to the intersection of Clinton Street and Lima Road. Here's the response this non-profit organization gave us.
Private property, you guys can't be here right now.
Okay, we just want to ask you a couple questions about the organization.
Nope.
I didn't know if you guys saw us.
Got about 5 seconds to get off the property before we have an issue.
According to Allen County records, we were actually standing on city property. Either way, I then stepped back on the sidewalk with cameraman Ross Kinsey. I didn't know if you guys saw us, so we just want to ask a couple questions.
Yeah, no comment. You guys, no.
I mean, we just have a couple questions about your organization. There's a lot of people who have questions.
Yeah, you can do that by phone.
Okay, what's your number?
It's online.
Adam, could you just talk about the organization?
Oh, you can't just follow people around. You have email address and everything. So don't comment. You guys can't be on a property.
All right. I mean, if people have questions about the organization, if it's legitimate or not, if it is legitimate, why wouldn't you want to say anything about it? This afternoon, I tried calling the number on the Sandbox Veterans' former Facebook page and was hung up on. Since my encounter with the group, their Facebook page is now nowhere to be found. If you have concerns about the legitimacy of the Sandbox Veterans, the State Attorney General's office wants to hear from you. You can file a complaint by calling 1-800-382-5516. I'm told your complaints could encourage the Attorney General to launch an investigation. On the other hand, if the Sandbox Veterans have helped you or any veteran you know, we definitely want to tell your story as part of our investigation. Please call the 15 Finds Out hotline at 260-481-1515, extension 1610. The Sandbox Veterans are not recognized, Mark and Heather, as a 501c3 with the IRS, but they are a nonprofit with the state. You can tune in next week as 15 Finds Out heads to Indianapolis to find out what that nonprofit filing actually means. Meanwhile, we'll continue to look into where your donations may or may not be going.
Okay, thank you, Adam Widener. Well, we have heard stories of concern from across the community. The Sandbox Veterans collect donations from drivers who are stopped at intersections around Fort Wayne. They say the money goes to help Iraq and Afghanistan veterans with PTSD. 15 Finds Out has focused its series of special reports on that group, and tonight Adam Widener takes a closer look at how our investigation and your response are making a difference as we continue our series, Patriots or Panhandlers.
State leaders say since our story last week, they've seen our footage and heard from a handful of you who have filed formal complaints against the Sandbox Veterans. And because of that, I can report tonight the Attorney General's office has now launched its own investigation into the Sandbox Veterans. City leaders call their tactics illegal.
Groups and individuals should not be soliciting for money from motorists in vehicles.
Drivers call them aggressive.
He's weaving in and out of traffic. People are just kind of like giving him the look like, what are you doing here? You're invading my privacy.
And while they may collect your money publicly,
No comment. You guys, no.
the Sandbox Veterans are far less willing to outline where your donations are going.
We've got about 5 seconds to get off the property before we have an issue.
After watching our special reports, a handful of your complaints made it here to the Attorney General's office in Indianapolis. Leaders here will now be trying to contact the Sandbox Veterans as a first step in its own investigation.
See what they have to say about the complaints and get as much information as we can.
Abby Kuzma is the Director of Consumer Protection for Indiana's Attorney General's office.
We would look for waste of assets, we'd look for fraudulent sorts of activity. If they're being deceptive in their practices in terms of solicitation or other things that they might be doing, we could look into that as well.
The Sandbox Veterans have made it difficult to find their financial records. The group is not recognized as a nonprofit or 501c3 with the federal government, but they are listed as a nonprofit with the state, something that's much easier to get and has fewer regulations. A 501c3's financial records are public, whereas to be a nonprofit with the state, a group doesn't even have to provide financial records.
We cannot get typically very much information other than the articles and bylaws about an organization that's filed with the state if they're not a 501c3. And of course you don't have to be a 501c3. There's no requirement that you apply with the federal government. But it does give the general public less information about you, and you have less advantages in terms of being a charitable organization as well.
The leaders of the Sandbox Veterans have a personal background with finances and criminal activity that's important for donors to understand. Roger Locke is the organization's director. He incorporated the Sandbox Veterans of America in 2011. Locke personally filed for bankruptcy just 9 years earlier in 2002, and a judge in Illinois convicted him of retail theft in 1992. As for Adam Silvani, he also filed for bankruptcy in 2002, and court records say Silvani pleaded guilty to failing to support a dependent child in 2008, meaning he's a convicted felon. His ex-wife Tiana Patti says since his probation ended, he stopped paying child support once again this past year.
he hasn't paid child support in how long, and he says he's trying to help veterans. I don't understand why he would help veterans when he doesn't even help his own children.
As for the Attorney General's office investigation, state leaders say they won't leave out any questions that need asked.
We'll be looking for verification of information, just a wide variety of possible topics depending on what kind of information we get back. And we want to caution people not to feel pressured to give when somebody is being aggressive. That's not a good sign. Frankly, it's a red flag for us.
A spokesman with the Fort Wayne Police Department tells me officers responded to a complaint about 2 people selling Bibles door to door yesterday. He says it was the same 2 men that have been collecting money for the Sandbox veterans. The Attorney General's office is unsure how long its investigation into the Sandbox veterans will take, but will update you as soon as more information becomes available. While their financial records may not be public, we've been speaking with veterans organizations across Fort Wayne about the Sandbox veterans. You can hear what they have to say as 15 Finds Out continues our series of investigations next week. Live in Studio 15, Adam Widener, News Channel 15.
We have new developments tonight in our investigation into the Sandbox veterans.
Members of the group collect donations from drivers at local intersections, and they say the money goes to helping Iraq and Afghanistan veterans with PTSD. But before a judge this afternoon, one of its members admitted his tactics were illegal. Tonight, 15 Finds Out continues its investigation into the group, and Adam Wider joins us with the latest installment in our series, Patriots or Panhandlers.
Adam Silvani was cited for illegally stopping or standing on a sidewalk. Legally, this is a minor infraction. Silvani will have to pay $35.50 for the citation. But it has larger implications for the Sandbox veterans now that one of its members has admitted to using an illegal tactic to collect donations. Silvani had no comment for our camera outside the courtroom this morning. 15 Finds Out has uncovered a lot of concerns in the community about the Sandbox veterans. Drivers around Fort Wayne call them aggressive. Despite concerns in the community, the group will not publicly outline where your donations are actually going. And new yesterday, the Attorney General's office has launched an investigation thanks to our special reports and your response. While the future of the organization is unclear at this point, Silvani received a different citation just this week. A woman who lives on North Anthony Boulevard tells me Silvani came to her door at 8 at night trying to sell used Bibles. She found it disturbing and apparently wasn't the only one. Someone else called the cops on Silvani for the same thing, and he was cited for not having a transient merchant license. You can tune in next week to hear what veterans organizations around Fort Wayne say about the Sandbox veterans as 15 Finds Out continues our series, Patriots or Panhandlers. In Studio 15, Adam Widener, News Channel 15.
And tonight we continue our 15 Finds Out investigation into the Sandbox veterans. Members of that group approach drivers for donations. Money they claim goes to Iraq and Afghanistan veterans.
Lots of people have told us they have concerns about where the cash is really going, though. So far, our exclusive series of special reports and your responses have prompted the State Attorney General's office to launch an investigation into the group. Tonight, 15 Finds Out reporter Adam Widener continues digging deeper into who this organization is or is not helping. He joins us live in Studio 15 as we continue our investigative series, Patriots or Panhandlers. Adam?
The city and now one of its members admits the tactics are illegal. Drivers call them aggressive, and its director won't share financial records or the name of any veterans his organization has helped. So 15 Finds Out went searching for those veterans on our own. We found one, but also discovered popular agencies that know nothing about the Sandbox veterans. Hey guys! 15 Finds Out's attempt to get an interview with the Sandbox veterans,
No comment. You guys, no.
left questions about who they're helping unanswered. I didn't know if you guys saw us.
Got about 5 seconds to get off the property before we have an issue.
So we put a call out on air and online. The only person we discovered
They actually were very generous and helpful for us.
Was Sherry Markham.
They bought us a couple trips worth of groceries, at least $100 worth both times.
Markham says her husband served in Iraq, and she is an Army veteran as well. She says her husband found the Sandbox veterans through Facebook, and they received help a couple times in 2012. but she didn't recognize any of the group's members from our video.
They did have a man with two appearance-wise teenage boys. I thought it was unfair and kind of unjust that they're looked at as just another scam when in fact they have helped people.
Markham doesn't know anyone else who's been helped, and when asked about the group's failure to comment, had this message for the Sandbox veterans.
Say something, say, hey, this is where we're going, give some kind of evidence because you did a great thing.
Since no other veterans came forward, we tried to find them on our own. Allen County Veterans Service Officer George Jarbo is one of the first people local servicemen and women see when they return from Iraq or Afghanistan.
We try to get them enrolled for VA health care, education, disability compensation claims, low-income pension programs, VA insurance programs, things of that nature.
When asked about the Sandbox veterans, here's what Jarbo, a Navy veteran, had to say.
I don't hear everything, but you would think out of all the veterans that we have coming through our door, someone would mention that organization if they've received help from them. Pressure sales like that should never be done through a veteran charitable organization. It's an easy way to hit somebody up for some money and pretty much tug on their heartstrings, so to speak, and get a few bucks out of them.
It was the same story across Allen County. Here's a spokesman with the VA hospital. Do you know of any veterans that they have helped?
No, I do not know of any.
We even called every VFW and American Legion in Fort Wayne.
I know of nobody who has ever been helped by the Sandbox veterans.
Not at this post.
No, not to my knowledge.
Roger Locke is the director of the Sandbox Veterans. In an email, Locke said his organization gets an average 30 requests a day for help. To prove it, he forwarded us some of the needs. So we caught up with the woman behind one of them.
He put a little ad on Pay It Forward, and he wants to help people.
Dee Bratton and family members surprisingly were not veterans. But Bratton says the evening of January 23rd, Locke posted on a popular Facebook page called Allen County Pay It Forward, asking if anyone needed help. On that same day, we had already emailed Locke questions about his organization.
A gentleman named Roger, he's asking he wants to help people. And he asked if I would email him. I guess that I'll be hearing from him again, but I don't know too much about it.
The director of the Facebook page didn't like Locke's post. And after what she calls a rude encounter with Locke online,
I'm always skeptical of posts like that. I just want everybody to know that we are not affiliated with this organization. It just didn't feel right.
Bratton and a couple others from the Allen County Pay It Forward site say and even showed me emails from Roger Locke assuring them he would help with their needs. Despite Locke's promises, all of them say they have yet to receive any help from Locke or the Sandbox veterans. 15 Finds Out will be following up with the Attorney General's office and bring you developments on their investigation as soon as they become available. And make sure you tune in next week as we highlight what other local organizations are doing to help Iraq and Afghanistan vets with PTSD.
Adam Widener, thank you very much.
All month long, we have aired a series of investigative reports on the Sandbox veterans.
Members of that group approached drivers for donations they said were going to Iraq and Afghanistan veterans. Well, several of you have expressed concerns about where the donations are really going, and you've emailed or called in to thank us for shedding light on the organization. Tonight, 15 Finds Out continues digging deeper by taking a closer look at what the group has done since we started airing our investigations. News Channel 15's Adam Widener has the latest in our series, Patriots or Panhandlers.
Before we began our series of investigations into the Sandbox veterans, we saw the group approaching vehicles for donations several times a week near East DuPont Road. I've discovered now the organization has dissolved its nonprofit standing with the state. As for the 3 men we found involved with the Sandbox veterans, according to National Archives, there is no record that any of them have served in the military. The city calls the Sandbox veterans' tactics illegal.
This can become a safety issue.
Drivers call them aggressive.
Something doesn't feel right about it.
And popular veterans agencies don't know anyone the group has helped.
Not one. No.
The Sandbox veterans didn't want to share their financial records or even talk about their organization on camera.
No comment. You guys, no.
And after watching our special reports, the Indiana Attorney General's office launched an investigation into the group.
We're looking for violations of Indiana law dealing with deceptive practices.
But since we began our investigations, the once very visible group has seemingly vanished. According to their nonprofit filing with the state of Indiana, the Sandbox veterans filed to dissolve the organization on Valentine's Day. The same day, member Adam Silvani admitted to a citation he received when asking for donations. And a day after, we reported the Attorney General's investigation. The Sandbox veterans' activity online has disappeared as well. Their Facebook page has been removed, and what was once their website now has the title "Coming Soon" with a question mark. In an email, Sandbox Veterans Director Roger Locke said he was a lifetime member of 3 of the largest veteran groups in the country, and we've seen volunteer John Cantrell wear a couple different hats that say Vietnam veteran. But according to a National Archives technician, she can't find any record that Locke, Silvani, or Cantrell are veterans. Finally, Cantrell, seen here walking very close to a driver's window, has arguably the most extensive criminal record in the group. A grand jury in McHenry County, Illinois, indicted him in 2007 for writing hundreds of dollars in bad checks to a Menards. He eventually pleaded guilty to a felony charge. Then in 2009, authorities indicted Cantrell for using counterfeit money at 3 stores in Glenbrook Square Mall. An Allen County jury found him guilty on 2 counts of felony forgery and 2 counts of felony theft. John Cantrell was initially sentenced to 8 years in prison in 2009. 15 Finds Out has discovered his sentence was cut in half thanks to good time credit. He was released on parole May 11th last year, and our camera saw him collecting donations for the Sandbox veterans just 2 months later.
Right after spring, they were out here a few times.
Go up and down the cars when they're stopped on the intersection there.
They carried a big plastic jug where you could see the money in it.
They're stories that sound familiar.
They had a big thing on that said something like support Catholic veterans.
It just didn't add up, you know. I mean, the same 3 guys every day, 7 days a week.
But these people aren't in Fort Wayne.
Chicago, Chicago, that toddling town. Chicago, Chicago, I will.
15 Finds Out is here in the Edgewater section of Chicago, where the Sandbox veterans have recently posed as the Catholic veterans of Northern Illinois. Adam Silvani worked this intersection, while John Cantrell worked the one across the street, doing the exact same thing they were doing in Fort Wayne, only at a major road leading into downtown Chicago.
These guys are walking up and down the medians saying, "Hi, I'm a veteran and I'm collecting donations on behalf of our charity, Catholic Veterans of Illinois."
Ben Woodard is a reporter-producer at DNA Info Chicago, an online neighborhood news source. He began getting complaints soon after 15 Finds Out aired our investigation into the group, so he started investigating.
They said that these people were aggressive and that it wasn't really clear where the money was going that was being donated.
This wasn't the first time the group changed its name. In July of last year, 15 Finds Out spotted Cantrell and Silvani using a Catholic veterans sign near Lima and DuPont roads in Fort Wayne.
So Adam Silvani was right here in this median. So I approached him, and he said, "Is this going to be a positive story or a negative story?" And I said, "Well, I'm just here to get the facts. That's my job." But he wouldn't specify where the money was going, and I could not find one organization who had accepted donations from this group or any people who may have benefited from what they were doing.
Woodard began to dig deeper into the group and came across some familiar stories in Fort Wayne, Indiana. What did you think when you saw the stories on Wayne.com?
I said, this is what everyone in this neighborhood was expecting.
What if I were to tell you these same 3 guys are doing the same exact thing in Fort Wayne, Indiana?
I would believe that, because I think they were just, ripping people off, and they got away with it for quite a while,
And in the end, Woodard's story had a similar effect in the North Side Chicago neighborhood. What happened to the Catholic veterans of Northern Illinois after you posted your story?
They sort of disappeared. We haven't seen them since.